The fight scene is one of careful precision, clean choreography, artful cinematography, and masterful editing. If it's too bland, you lose the audience's attention. If it's too close and messy, you lose the audience's patience. Timing and staging is everything, and if the smallest detail is out of order, the illusion can be completely lost. In this video, we're going to look at the technical and creative process of creating an engaging cinematic fight sequence, focusing specifically on the famous corridor sequence from Park Chan-wook's South Korean mystery thriller, Oldboy. This scene demonstrates how action sequences can be handled with subtlety and minimalism, something which very few mainstream Hollywood productions seem to do. It's a very simple fight scene. Our protagonist Oh Dae-soo is attempting to escape a gang hideout, but is ambushed and a fight ensues as our hero struggles through his oppressors to get to the exit. The character starts at A and needs to get to B, but by presenting obstacles in their path, we create a sense of drama and suspense. Here, the entire scene is done in one motion. The camera moves with the hero as he battles left to right, making it easy for the viewer to keep involved in the action. In cinema, fight scenes tend to create tension using an unwritten method known as the balance of power, which comes from the political theory that no force is dominant enough to take total control, creating a sense of neutral stability. In film, the process involves the switching of power. The hero starts strong but is eventually worn down by his opposition, making the audience concerned that he or she isn't going to triumph, but eventually they overcome their physical or emotional weakness and win the battle. It becomes a literal back and forth process so that we're never certain who is actually going to win, hence the idea of switching power through neutral stability. For example, putting a superhero in the same room as a thug does little for us because we know who's more physically capable of winning, whereas films like Die Hard, Mad Max, and John Wick make it clear to the viewer that the hero is still beatable and has natural human weaknesses which can play into how much we empathize and care about them. Oldboy effectively demonstrates the balance of power concept through three processes within the scene: cinematography, pacing, and blocking. Firstly, cinematography is used to frame our hero Oh Dae-soo in the center of the screen, asserting him as the dominant character to pay attention to. But when he becomes overwhelmed, he loses this status as he is thrown off the center frame, inferring to the fact that he is no longer the dominant threat. In the second half of the fight, we find our protagonist on the far right of the frame, indicating that we're approaching the end of the battle. We as the audience know that the finish line is intrinsically on the right hand side. Most of us are used to reading left to right or sinistrodextral, hence we're accustomed to seeing left as the start and the right as the finish line. It's a familiar concept in most sports cinematography, 2D video games, and of course our understanding of time. When we see our hero on the move and getting towards the right hand side of the frame, we believe he's overcoming the obstacles set by the A and B scenario, and with the camera locked onto Oh Dae-soo's movement, the camera is thus a reinforcement of progression. The more the camera moves, the greater our confidence for the protagonist is. Hence, when he's trapped by the opposition, the camera halt intensifies our anxieties that Oh Dae-soo is in serious trouble. We even use the camera as a tool to track Oh Dae-soo because as the enemies start to clutter the frame, our hero is lost amongst the bodies to highlight his devastating odds. The choice of a repetitive interior and low-key lighting certainly helps in solidifying the realism and uncertainty that the scenario requires. Now, let's consider the pacing of the scene. The action starts fast. Our protagonist is filled with energy and adrenaline. He's well trained, so his first strikes hit hard and set the tone for his fighting style. He's well rehearsed in his abilities, so we watch comfortably as he battles with confidence and speed. However, he's quickly overwhelmed, and from here we realize that Oh Dae-soo has wasted all his energy in the opening moments, and this is conveyed by the reduction of the pace. By the end of the scene, the pacing has almost grounded to a halt due to the exhaustion of the characters. This skillful, energetic fighting eventually succumbs to a lazy, meaningless scrap, as both parties simply want the battle to end. And all of this is carried by both the performances and the process of blocking. In theatre and film, blocking is the process of staging actors in a specific location and position so that they have a visual status. Visual status is just another way of referring to the visual relationship between characters. For example, if I was to place a character downstage and then put various other characters upstage, the character in front can be viewed as the leader. In film, a good example would be making a character taller than someone else to make them appear stronger and more controlling. This isn't necessarily always the job of the camera, but rather the job of the performer, and the fact that the film star Choi Min-sik did his own stunt work plays into the authenticity that helps bring the scene to life both emotionally and aesthetically. Traditional blocking in fight scenes tends to be the hero on the left and the villain on the right, inferring back to the A and B scenario. In this scene, our understanding of the fight scene schematic, that is, the traditional design we're accustomed to seeing, is completely overturned. Enemies don't just come from the right, they also come from the left as well, isolating and trapping the hero, breaking his defensive position. When Odisu is backed into a wall, he grabs an enemy with a distinctive red shirt, a color that is indicative of danger. In this case, the hero is metaphorically signaling for help. As a result, we see that the hero's confidence has diminished and the threat has taken control. This becomes obvious when our hero is literally pulled from his center frame status and disappears from the viewer's eye, using the blocking technique to emotional effect. If we were sticking with the concept of switching power, the hero starts strong, is overwhelmed, but ultimately triumphs, you'd expect Odisu to get on his feet and win the battle. But here, that's not necessarily the case. Exhaustion settles in, and the battle ends more with a whimper than a great victorious bang. Odisu is defeated, with the highest note of the battle being the knife in his back. All the characters stop moving, the music drops, and everybody takes a deep breath. That's the signal that the battle is over. But this is where Oldboy throws traditional fight scenes out the window. Odisu plays dead to trick his opponents and escapes to the right side of the screen, the finish line, to regain the breathing space that he had at the start, and now he's back in a defensive position. He is blocked spaciously on his own side once again. However, the most interesting point to the blocking is from this point, nobody dares to enter the center frame. Everybody hesitates to come near our hero, and when somebody does, they soon regret their own heroism. Odisu only ever fights his way to the center of the frame to threaten any attackers away, but even he himself retreats from the center to maintain his defensive position. The reason for this has become obvious. Everybody is tired. This is a very honest depiction of a rather short but arduous fight. Odisu rests against the wall, and the fallen foes would rather stay down than get back up because they simply don't want to fight any longer. We actually sympathize with them as they appear anxious and scared throughout the entire scene. Notice that they cower behind one another, take turns confronting Odisu, hesitate attacking, and most importantly, make clumsy mistakes. Characters fall over themselves, miss while attempting to hit the hero, and even Odisu tripping over the stick helps to elevate how natural and spontaneous the entire event is. When the camera eventually cuts to a high-angle close-up of Odisu, he's clearly exhausted but relieved, as we see his personal accomplishment over the obstacles crying in pain behind him. As he smiles off screen, we assume it's a sign of his relief, but as the camera cuts to an elevator full of more thugs, we are lastly reminded that Odisu still has a long battle ahead of him. And relax. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to share your own thoughts in the comments below. If you have your own favorite fight scene, please share it as well, because the possibilities for that answer are endless. Next Thursday, we're going to be looking at the depressing, sad, upsetting reality that is It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I actually had a lot of fun with this one, so that'll be interesting. Until next time, stay safe. If you're on Facebook or Twitter, if you could go like those things, that would be amazing. If you're not already, do subscribe as well. Stay safe, and I'll see you next Thursday.